What is crack-a-lackin', fellow thermonuclear AFers? I am Dan Valley coming at you with a solo episode on some NBA buyout candidates. Before we get started, the usual reminder to subscribe to us if you have not done so already. If you're new on YouTube, hit that sub button, like and comment as well to help the algorithm love us back. Subscribe to us on podcast players as well, Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your pods, we are there. Join our Discord too. The link to that is in the podcast and YouTube description. You can follow us on all the socials. They're on the screen or in the podcast and YouTube description as well. At HardwoodKnocks on Twitter and TikTok. At Hardwood_Knocks on Instagram. TikTok's been growing. I would like to get to 1K followers on TikTok or Instagram, and Instagram doesn't grow. So if you have a TikTok, go follow at HardwoodKnocks. I do post clips there. Some of them are, unique to only the TikTok and IG and YouTube Shorts feeds as well. Finally, if you've done all those things, just consider word of mouth recommendations. We really appreciate those. You can retweet us on Twitter, shout us out on Twitter. But again, recommendations, getting other people to download or join this community, random people on the street, coworkers, friends, acquaintances, even enemies, family members, whatever. We appreciate all of it. With all that out of the way, so there's a lot to unpack, and I'm still sort of trying to digest the new world order post NBA trade deadline. So I thought it'd be fun to go through some buyout candidates before we get into a few mailbags this week and maybe some other stuff too. That just feels like the best route to go because I'm still, after covering the trade deadline the way that we did here and at Bleacher Report as well, I feel like I still need to get my bearings about me. Not that I need to like relearn the entire league. It didn't change that much, but basketball almost took a backseat for like last week. Like I'm just flat out. Like I watched as much as I could, but I just feel like I have a terrible feel for the league now, especially with all these injuries popping up. And so I don't necessarily want to get into the nitty gritty outside of mailbag questions, which will direct me into doing specific research. So yeah, with that said, I'm just going to throw up. The Athletic had a piece from John Hollinger where he went through, I think it was like 35 candidates, some of which have already been bought out, by the way. The wing buyout market is not looking too hot right now, just because Danny Green is already signed, Terrence Ross already signed. Terrence Ross is headed to Phoenix, and Danny Green ended up in Cleveland. And I think that's the biggest one, is someone who can make an impact. Dwayne Dedmon's going to Philly. That's not like too big of a deal. So, but there's still some of these names, and I'll go through some of my own names here. So yes, let's journey through this together. So number one is Russell Westbrook, still with the Utah Jazz as I record this. He's a real tough fit, and the Jazz have said they haven't ruled out him reporting. I think that's probably more of like a negotiation ploy than anything with Russ's people. The Clippers and Bulls have both been mentioned. I'm not a fan really of either of them. I guess I could see some merit to the Clippers just because they really don't have, after trading Reggie Jackson and John Wall, that traditional floor organizer. But like Terrence Mann is better than Russ at this point. I'd rather give those minutes to Bones Highland, and then you have Paul George and Kawhi Leonard that could run stuff. Ditto for Nick Batum as well. And you could probably even get a little bit of half-court creation out of Eric Gordon. So I don't love it, but I could see just them having enough spacing and smaller lineups to where Russ could work there. I don't get it for the Bulls at all, unless they just want to drum up their chaos factor. The team I thought of, I would like to see him in Brooklyn. I know they clearly didn't want him because they didn't want like his contract as part of a potential Kyrie trade. But like they have enough in the non-Ben Simmons lineups. You could surround him with enough shooting to where maybe it works. Perhaps it doesn't if you need to have Nick Claxton on the floor in those minutes. But they just have so many wings who in theory can shoot, or guards who can shoot, that maybe it could pan out. And he's also just like, they don't have their own offensive organizer because that's not even Ben Simmons anymore. He could push it or get the ball up the court in transition, but he's not going to settle down and run things in the half court. Spencer Dinwiddie's their best option there, followed by Patty Mills and then Mikal Bridges. So I could see it working, and they're going to be trying to make the playoffs because they don't control their own first round pick this year. I don't think it's something they would consider, but just because they already have sort of this logjam as it is. But that's like, I'm just looking at fits here. And so like, regardless of roster spots, although I did take those into consideration when going through these. Reggie Jackson, he already signed with Denver. I actually think that was a pretty good fit. John Wall's another tough one. Houston Rockets legend John Wall at this point. He's a tough fit around a lot of the league. I think some people have mentioned Miami. I don't really like that for him. I kind of like Toronto, where it's like they need someone who in the half court can get going downhill without taking a while to get there, where it's like you see a lot of east-west stuff from Pascal Siakam or hesitation with him and Scotty Barnes, just operating at a more methodical pace. John Wall can still get downhill, so I wouldn't mind him there. Does he provide enough shooting? Do they have enough shooting to make that work? He's shown in the past he can hit some off-ball threes, but that's just not been the case. really this year. So I do wonder about that. But they do play these 5-out lineups in general. Like the shooting percentages aren't always pretty, but the Raptors do play a lot of 5-out lineups. So I think that would be my most intriguing. It'd be John Wall to Toronto. Patrick Beverley, I believe he already completed his buyout with Orlando, has not found a destination as of this recording. I don't know what would be the best spot for him. I think he could reunite with the Timberwolves, maybe the Clippers. I also could see, like, is there a pathway to him being in Dallas, who just can't defend anything right now? Their biggest issue is probably rim protection. And are you going to put Beverly on the court with both Luka and Kyrie? I mean, Luka's definitely big enough for you to consider it. But you have Josh Green there, and Reggie Bullock. So maybe you don't need him. But I did think about Dallas. Maybe that could be an interesting landing spot for him. I wouldn't hate him in Atlanta either if you're looking to upgrade some of just like the backup ball handler minutes. But they do have Bogdan Bogdanovic there. He's certainly an upgrade over an Aaron Holiday or a Vic Krejci. They have Garrison Matthews there as well. Again, not up, like I'm not naming point guards here. It's really the Aaron Holiday would be where the upgrade comes from. So I could kind of see the theory of that. I don't really have any other teams that I would love for him though. If I had to pick, like just go back to Minnesota at this point, between some of the injuries and the way that they've been banged up, they have Anthony Edwards and Kyle Anderson to sort of steer the offense. It's not going to be Jordan McLaughlin or Jalen Noel to do it. And they have Mike Conley as well. So maybe you don't need a Patrick Beverley there, but that feels just like they seem to like him there last season. So why not just go that route? I don't really have like another. I thought I did. They're just too crowded, and I'd rather see minutes go to Kyra Lewis. But I thought about New Orleans for a minute, just because, like, I don't know. But like they have Jose Alvarado there, and they have CJ McCollum. They have all these wing minutes, and that's going to get tough. I think I'm just looking at like Garrett Temple, thinking, oh, like you could figure out a way to get rid of him really quickly and open up a roster spot for Patrick Beverley. So that might be why I'm sort of gravitating here. But I don't like, the more I thought about it, the more or less I didn't love it. I will say, if he didn't have beef with Chris Paul and Kevin Durant, Phoenix could probably make a good amount of sense for him. I do think he's become a little overrated defensively at this point, but he's still like a body that you could throw at. Maybe Portland, if they want a backup point guard who's not Anthony Simons, like those minutes could be tough. And then we know that, like, we know the defensive limitations of a Simons Lillard backcourt to begin with. They do have Tybal and Reddish there now, but like they still don't have that true, and they never do behind Damian Lillard. I don't know. Is that part of his contract that you can't have like a legitimate backup point guard there? I don't know. Dario Saric. So this is one, I don't think the Oklahoma City Thunder should buy him out because I think he's a fantastic fit there. And he's been like quietly really good over the past couple months or month plus or whatever. He's shown some of that like blend of physical force and finesse when he puts the ball on the floor. I love the idea of him just kind of playing like the 4, the small ball 5 role for OKC. But if they did buy him out, my two favorite destinations right off the bat would be Golden State. I think from a fit perspective and playing for a team where that could go deeper into the playoffs at their top end, I like him in Golden State better. But from if we want to see the most of Dario Saric on the court, I think Miami might just have more minutes to offer him. You could play him next to Bam. You could play him as your small ball 5. So there would just be like more like optionality there. I mean, you could play him as a small ball 5 in Golden State as well, but they have Draymond Green and Kevon Looney. And so would Dario Saric be part of their closing lineups? Now, I think you could say the same. Or is he going to be part of Miami's closing units? I'm not saying. I think you would have a better chance, let's say, of playing more high stakes moments in Miami. And so those are my two favorite destinations for him. He could fit a bunch of different places though, if you're getting like super technical. Like I've been funny, like a Philly reunion just to bring him in for the backup 5 behind like Joel Embiid to take minutes from Montrezl Harrell, but they apparently wanted more of a truer big, and that was tougher. You have Tucker and Jalen McDaniel, so that's not the best one. Sacramento would be wild, but like we need like someone in Sacramento who's gonna just provide you with more of a defensive punch. So Dario Saric, if he gets bought out, which I don't, the Thunder did get a second round pick in that deal, so it's not like they did that deal for Saric, but I think that he's a good fit there. So I don't really know if he's going to get bought out. My guess would probably be no, but I don't really have a good feel for what Oklahoma City might necessarily want to do. Danny Green, he already signed with Cleveland. I think that that's an excellent fit. Kelly Oubre, just because of his injury, I wonder if he would get bought out. I think Charlotte, like was a good enough player before his injury where you don't want to give him away for nothing. It seems like you could have gotten at least a second for him, sort of like you did with Mason Plumlee at the deadline. He would be, I won't say great. He would be super interesting in Sacramento. I can maybe see even him in Miami. Maybe they want someone who's going to provide a little bit more spacing. I would love him in Sacramento. Would be my favorite destination for Kelly Oubre though. And like any other teams here, I mean, there are definitely teams that could use him. I think Milwaukee would still be interesting even after signing Jay Crowder. I could even see like maybe even Minnesota could be semi intriguing, although their wing minutes could get pretty stacked. Imagine if he just went to the Lakers. There's not enough like regular playing time for him there. If you really care about playing time, like Kelly Oubre Jr. in Indiana, he would never go there. But like that would be like a super interesting landing spot for him. Could you see him go to Dallas? Like I think he might be. If you're ever going to find yourself dipping into the well of a Markieff Morris minutes, like he could definitely be an upgrade over those. But I don't know that I love the fit there. But that might be like maybe Atlanta if they're like, okay, well, we have Sadiq Bey now and we're going to create a roster spot to have that as insurance. But I don't necessarily love that either. Boston feels like it might be in the market for a wing because it was tied to Danny Green. I think that they probably want someone who's just more a proven shooter. But you could, I mean, if it's a matter of like getting rid of Blake Griffin, I would prefer of having Kelly Oubre on the roster. And I don't know if does Boston have an open roster spot is something that I should have checked before I did that. My roster spot docs are like all sort of messed up, but regardless, like if you could fit him, I think he would be a really good fit for the roster. And I guess they do have a roster spot open 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. No, there's 15, excuse me. So yeah, that would just be Kings are my favorite destination for Kelly Oubre Jr. Seth Curry was on Hollinger's list. I just can't see them. That's just way more like that'd be out there. I know he's going to be a free agent. You have Joe Harris. You have Patty Mills, both of whom have underperformed their current contracts. Seth Curry, when healthy, has been the best of that bunch. But you do just have a crap ton of minutes to divvy up around the perimeter right now. You almost have too many good players. Like Spencer Dinwiddie's there. Now the emergence of Cam Johnson, Mikal Bridges is there. Ben Simmons, Royce O'Neal. So I guess I could see it. And if he's on the market though, like I don't like Atlanta should definitely be in on that, even though they got Garrison Matthews. Boston should he's probably too small for that, so not Boston. I like no Dallas that doesn't need a reunion in Dallas. Golden State, no, definitely not. They have GP2 there, and he's just too small, and they need more defense than anything. Like Miami, do they need someone they could fit him into the rotation? Miami wouldn't be a terrible one. Milwaukee would be super interesting, but I feel like he could get a larger role elsewhere. Maybe a reunion, like maybe going to Portland, but like he's not your typical backup point guard, and so I don't know that they would view him as a value add there. Certainly put him in Phoenix would be wild, but like they have Shamet and they signed Terrence Ross. They have Damian Lee in campaign. I think, look, he's better than Shamet and Terrence Ross in my book offensively, but Shamet's probably better defensively at this point. So you could like, do we go with, I guess Portland would like be the one. Like Toronto could use a shooter, but just like he's so tiny that maybe it really doesn't matter. I guess maybe there would be a market for Seth Curry. I just don't expect him to get bought out. I already wasted too much time on him. Kevin Love is another one. He's like racking up the DMPs at the same time. He doesn't seem like he's super unhappy, and he's finally on like a really good Cavaliers team. I don't know that they would just buy him out. Maybe if he asked for one, they would facilitate that. You could try him for the Warriors would make a lot of sense. So it'd have to be like him going to join a contender, and like the Boston Celtics are already kind of taken out of that equation. Maybe would Portland, like that's always been like I think Kevin Love in Portland, do they want to use him as the backup five? It's not going to do anything for their defense. Would Miami consider giving him some minutes as the backup five or at the 4 there, which I don't know that I would recommend it. So maybe them. But yeah, other than that, like I don't see enough clear fits to where he would just yes, someone would pick him up, but I don't know that he could go play a much bigger role on a much better team. Corey Joseph in Detroit. I don't like maybe he could be bought out. I just don't know what team is gonna be like, hey, let me pounce on Corey Joseph once he hits the market. He could still be a gnat on defense. And so if you're looking for that, could Phoenix take a flyer on him? Is he gonna be like, is there any reality where he takes minutes away from a healthy campaign in that scenario? You don't necessarily need him to be consistent on offense when you have so much firepower there already. So that could be a destination. Portland, after trading GP2, like just using a smaller guy who could get into you, perhaps they would look at that. Dallas, like I guess like they could still use that sort of archetype player. So yeah, there could be teams that use him. I just don't know that he would be like maybe the Clippers certainly in that scenario. Maybe even Minnesota. I don't know what the appetite is for Minnesota to go after a backup point guard now because they have Anthony Edwards and Kyle Anderson and Mike Conley. So I don't know if it's the same thing as having D'Angelo Russell on the other two, but like Mike Conley's more of the floor organizer than D'Angelo Russell ever would be. Goran Dragic is interesting because the Bulls have been linked to Russ. So if you sign Rush, Dragic is probably the guy who you would just get rid of in that scenario. Would he consider a reunion in Miami? Him in Portland could be interesting as sort of there. Like a true backup point guard. Other than that, like, would he consider going to the Clippers? Do they even want him? Like, the Clippers, I know, are going to be this popular destination for a backup point guard. And when you look at their depth chart, like, yeah, they don't have that actual floor general there, but they just have so many good players, and including Eric Gordon and Terrence Mann plus Kawhi and Paul George. Are you really going to go, what type of minutes could you guarantee Dragic in that scenario? So like how much is he actually going to play? How about the Bucks for a minute for some half court juice, which they don't get in Jay Crowder, but like the Javon Carter minutes for them have gone quite well. And I don't know, like, are you going to play Dragic over him on most nights? So Minnesota or Portland might be sort of my favorite. I did think about New Orleans here for a second. Again, I'm not in love with the idea of New Orleans hitting anybody at this point. The roster crunch is real. It's like that would get a little awkward for them. And also they just have so many options that you kind of want to simplify their rotation, not complicate it. So I think I would settle on Portland as my favorite for him. And Miami could make like some semblance of sense, and I wouldn't mind a Minnesota there. Next up, we have Thaddeus Young. I just don't think he gets bought out, even though he has only 1 million guaranteed next season. For teams that are looking for maybe a small ball five, like he's definitely someone that could help. I'm naming Portland a lot for these guys. I wouldn't hate him in Portland, just downsize and try and go like the team defense route in those minutes. But that could even be a feed. Like there's no team that's like, oh, they're a Thaddeus Young away, or they need Thaddeus Young in their rotation. He does create some offensive challenges for certain teams. Miami could be somewhat interesting, although I wouldn't want to see him play too many minutes alongside Bam Adebayo. Could you talk yourself into that being an answer in Golden State? I guess, but it's like you're using him. I think you have to view him as like the 5 in that scenario where he's just going to come in and spell Looney and like maybe take JaMychal Green's minutes. And I don't know if that compromises your offense at all. You probably gain a little bit. You gain IQ just from his playmaking. I don't think Thaddeus Young was really going to help Dallas's like rim protection all that much, although the Mavs could certainly take a look at him. But yeah, those would be some interesting teams for him for sure. I just don't think he gets bought out. And I don't really know what the hell Toronto's doing. Kendrick Nunn, I'm not really sure what team he helps. So maybe he does get bought out, but like it would be the same teams that we're naming for Russ or John Wall. And I just don't know would as many of those teams be willing to just roll the dice on him because he doesn't have the name recognition or the resume that a John Wall or Russell Westbrook does. And so I can't see him hitting the market and being any teams. Like if he was a buyout candidate right now and you're still waiting to see what happens with Russ and John Wall and their decisions, I don't think that I would pick Kendrick Nunn over either of them. DeAndre Jordan, that's just I don't know who's going to sign DeAndre Jordan. My guess would be he doesn't get bought out, even though Thomas Bryant is there. He does seem to be a good locker room presence. Derrick Rose is interesting. He has on the record saying he's not going to request the buyout, and Tibbs was happy that he stayed past the deadline, but he's racking up DNPs now. Josh Hart comes over, Deuce McBride gets bounced from the rotation, so the pathway to minutes for Rose would be really tough. I think maybe him in like the Clippers, that could be clearly someone who is okay when he's not like playing a ton of minutes. But the situation he's leaving in New York, they are a good team. They're not a great team. So you would only want to leave if an opportunity presents itself to play a bunch of minutes or a bunch more minutes. Where are you going to get those minutes? Like I said, the Clippers, I don't know how many minutes they would guarantee you or could guarantee you. And he's not going to go back to Minnesota. That's just certainly not happening. Could Toronto like be that? But the fact that he's not playing in New York, what does that say about how much he has left there? So I don't think he'll get a buyout. Like it would take maybe Portland as a backup could be interesting. That's just so offense first in that scenario. But I just don't know. I'm sure there would be teams willing to roll the dice on him, but I can't imagine that he'll have um, a ton of suitors, or at least a role waiting for him that is far more substantive than the one he's carrying now. Will Barton of the Wizards, who wanted a trade, didn't get a trade, like in theory, and that's he's just not been good this season, has been playing a ton lately. He is someone who could help a lot of teams because he's a little bit bigger at 6'5", and he can give you some secondary shot creation making in theory. Just hasn't been that player this year. I really like him in Milwaukee. That would be a fun one. And I think someone who helps them legitimately there. You can maybe try him in Phoenix, but not post Terrence Ross. So I would veto that most likely. I don't really see a better fit for him other than Milwaukee. If you wanted to go with Miami, just because maybe they could steal some minutes, just when you have Jimmy Butler, like you could steal some minutes where he's like the he's still the 2, or maybe he's technically the 3, but you're not, like between Caleb Martin and Jimmy Butler, you're not giving up a ton defensively. Memphis would have been good pre Luke Kennard, but post Luke Kennard, I don't think they make a ton of sense there. Golden State does not need a Will Barton. Dallas does not need a Will Barton. Cleveland already has Danny Green, so they're not in, like, they don't need to make any other moves there. So yeah, that gets tough for him. I think it would be, I'm not going to say it's Milwaukee or bust, but Milwaukee would be most interesting. Maybe Boston, if you think that he's going to give you some upgrades over the Sam Hauser minutes or non-minutes or roller coasters that you've been dealing with the past couple months. Terrence Ross, he's already in Phoenix after flirting with Dallas. Nerlens Noel in Detroit. I mean, he needs to get bought out already. They have a trillion bigs. I need to listen to the Detroit Bad Boys podcast, by the way. Rumor has it on Twitter that Laz Jackson was fantastic on that in this past episode. So I really need to listen to that. But after post James Wiseman trade is what I'm talking about. So I would think Portland is a good one for him. I would have said, what about a reunion in Philly until they had signed Dwayne Dedmon? I like the idea, though, of Nerlens Noel in Portland for sure. If the Bulls kind of fancy themselves like, oh, we don't want Drummond, could Noel be of use there? There's not. I mean, he probably could help Dallas, but I'm assuming there's just such bad blood there, even though the front office has been turned over since then. Mark Cuban is, of course, still there. That I maybe can't imagine that he would go back. I also don't think, like, this is why. I mean, I like Thomas Bryant, but like if you're Denver, you probably could have used Nerlens Noel on the buyout market rather than giving up 3 seconds for. You basically turned Bones Highland in 1 second into Thomas Bryant, which is still Could the Warriors, their need for a big is just so overrated. But like, if you don't trust JaMychal Green, who's played better lately, behind Kevon Looney, yeah, you could have Nerlens Noel come in, and that could be something that's interesting. I probably would have preferred. If you're the Clippers, you prefer Nerlens Noel over Mason Plumlee? I mean, Plumlee's the far better offensive player, so I'm probably getting ahead of myself there. Do the Heat look at him if they're really like hard up for true backup 5 minutes? That's like a potential fit there. Other than that, I don't think there's any good fits. Again, Philly would have been fun. I think Portland would be my favorite fit for Nerlens Noel, though. Next up, I feel like we're getting the nitty gritty here. Justin Holiday, he is already signed with Dallas. That's who I missed before. For anyone at the top of the podcast who couldn't hear me stuttering, Dwayne Dedmon, he signed with Philly. Serge Ibaka, just sitting on that open market. Probably another Portland guy. I'm just curious, with all the back issues Ibaka has dealt with and the fact that he wasn't playing in Milwaukee, who in theory could have used his skill set. I'm just wondering, like, okay, which team is going to want to give Serge Ibaka a chance? Would the Wizards maybe consider him just because they've been playing KP and Daniel Gafford together? They have Taj Gibson already, plus Anthony Gill minutes are probably just more intriguing. So not him. That's just like, I don't even have a destination for Serge Ibaka. Maybe Sacramento. Do you want to take a flight? Nerlens in Sacramento, by the way, could be fun. I wouldn't mind him there. Do you want to? You have Trey Lyles, you have Metu, you have Rashawn Holmes, and Alex Lynn is still there. So yeah, I don't think that would be. Phoenix is a no for me. So I just don't even know what team would want to take a flyer on Serge Ibaka right now. So yeah, those everything that I came up with there is basically it. I mean, like now we're getting the nitty gritty. Terry Taylor, he was already waived. If you could, like, I think rebuilding teams should just take a shot at him, all of them at this point. He's just kind of like he's all over the place when you look at him defensively and even offensively, all over the positional spectrum. And so, like, if you're a team that doesn't really have this immediate timeline and it can afford, I guess some teams might actually have an immediate timeline and just decide, yeah, well, why don't we roll the dice on this? Just like sort of this multi-position guy. Could Miami would be like the type of team that might be able to try that. Failing that though, like, I would like to see just like a team that's not thrown in the towel already, but like let's just like Houston taking a chance on someone who might give a damn about defense more. Detroit could be kind of fun. I just don't know how they fit, his minutes into the rotation there. So like any other the rebuilding teams I would like Terry Taylor for. Orlando, not really. OKC just doesn't have the roster spot. Everyone would just be fun in OKC though. Could you maybe Sacramento? Like, could that be a little bit interesting? Maybe even Portland. I'm just gonna name Portland for all these guys. Apparently, how's that for that? Like the San Antonio just taking a flyer, maybe even Utah. So just like those would be, like just a lot of teams I think could stand to take a flyer. Kevin Knox at Portland, not going to go through that. Boban already resigned with Houston. Bryn Forbes, like if you just need shooting, I mean, sure. Goga, he already signed with Orlando. James Johnson already signed with re-signed with Indiana. Juan Toscano-Anderson, I actually think could probably work in Utah, but like if you play, maybe the Warriors could use him if he gets bought out. Like that's someone that they could maybe add for the bigger wings. Bryn Forbes, though, just if you want pure shooting, I don't really know what's like the spot for that. Like Toronto, like, do they have the infrastructure to insulate him? Maybe. Um, I don't like. I don't love it though. I don't see a fit for Bryn Forbes. I don't know that if I was a team, I'd go out on a limb to sign him. Like, what does Milwaukee want to test out a reunion with him? I don't know about that. Did I say Miami for him already? That could be a potential possibility. I don't. LA, no. Like, not after getting Eric Gordon and having Bones Highland and Terrence Mann there. That's a no for me. So yeah, that gets super iffy. For sorry, Bryn Forbes, I can't come up with a good fit for you. Like, yeah, I don't even have one. I'm sorry. Like, do you think it does Atlanta think he's a upgrade over what they have? And I'd probably rather just see them play Garrison Matthews and have him throw his body all over the place on defense while chucking up threes. So yeah, James Johnson, like I said, resigned with the Pacers. Toscano-Anderson, I think in Golden State would probably make some semblance of sense if he actually gets bought out. I actually think, though, like I said, that Utah could find minutes for him and would be fun to test out in a lot of different lineups. And they're not a team that needs him to be high volume on offense. And like that's sort of the key is you need him to be able to basically do nothing on offense. Like he'll hit the occasional three, but he's not going to take them in high volume. And he'll keep the ball moving. So he's not going to like be a ball stopper. Memphis could be sort of interesting for him. Toronto that'd be right up their alley. Would Indy play him? I would love Juan Toscano-Anderson in Indy. That might be a good one. Or Sacramento, JTA in Sacramento. There are a lot of teams that I would like to see JTA on. It's the closest thing to like a wing type player here. Frank Kaminsky, he's just going to end up signing with Phoenix. Like that's the rite of passage here. That's how this works, right? So that's really it on the names. Like Alex Lynn at Sacramento. I don't know which team is going to want to take a real look at him. Maybe just Portland again if they're desperate for a backup big. Ryan Arcidiacono, if he gets bought out from Portland, I don't see there being like a huge market for him. So yeah, Svi Mikhailuk, maybe people will see, oh, he's 6'7". Like let's see who can we give him his reputation as being a shooter a shot just because of his size? Yeah, I guess maybe you could consider that. I think a lot of people, to sort of wrap up this exercise, are probably going to wonder. I think two of the names that are going to generate the most, oh, would they hit the buyout market, is Alec Burks because he has that team option for next year. I don't think like the Pistons could have gotten real stuff for him at the deadline. And by real stuff, I mean at least a probably not shitty second rounder. So I don't know why you would all of a sudden just buy him out. Maybe he could agitate for it, but he's been so good for them. He's so important. Their offensive shot making and creation at this point with no Cade Cunningham there. And then Jaden Ivey being a rookie and Killian Hayes sort of, falling off his peak from before. So I would be floored if he got bought out. The one that I did think about that's sort of like, I don't know why they would, but could they? Just like if they're really leaning into the tank and he asked for it, is Kelly Olynyk. He has $3 million guaranteed next season, so you could figure that out. Normally, when there's like a ton of guaranteed money, you're not going to see these buyouts. There would probably be like a big market for him, like Miami. I think Golden State would be in on that. I'm sure maybe Boston wouldn't be kicking itself for trading Mike Muscala, but like teams that had already signed backup bigs might have been like, or traded for them, been like, oh, shit if he was going to hit the buyout market. I think the competition though would be fairly fierce for him. Like even Dallas might be like, oh, is he an upgrade over our rim protection at this point? So I can't, I haven't seen anything about it. It's just when looking at the structure of his contract, I think the Jazz at this point probably view it as, well, him at what is he's 12.8, 12.2 next season, and 3 million of that is guaranteed. They would most likely view that as a workable number that they could trade. And there's more value there in either keeping him or using that number to anchor some more trades down the line. With that being said, though, I just feel like, you know, Golden State, being in on Miami, those would be the teams if he asked for it. I'm saying, I mean, even New Orleans might just come out of left field and decide, oh, like, do we really need? Well, they have Garrett Temples. They have a ready-made roster spot if they want to do it. That's someone that they could certainly look at. With Phoenix. Even like they have Aiden and Biyombo, so no, and they clearly, if they could have kept Saric, they would clearly want to go with like more of the wing type defenders in Baisley or Craig or Kogi. Him in Portland as the backup center would be good. Even in Sacramento, you could play him and Sabonis together if you really wanted to. Maybe redundant with the way Trey Lyles has given them some pretty good minutes this year. Toronto doesn't really need him anymore. So I don't think he's going to get bought out, but that would be like the name where if he wanted to go to a different team and the Jazz were really hell bent on just not playing well the rest of the season. But yeah, so those are really the buyout candidates. I don't think I missed anyone who could like really come out of left field and shock us. It feels like some of these rotations in the league are overcrowded, and so maybe we miss one here and there. Some people have mentioned Rashawn Holmes. I don't really think that that's feasible. Just with 2 years left on his contract, I don't really see how you get to that point. So let me know if you have any buyout candidate suggestions or destinations that you like for anyone that was mentioned that I did not cover. This is a nice little short exercise just to kind of lay the landscape of who could help the league after this. I think someone who's like the most impactful. We probably already, I think Danny Green would be my pick, even though he's still working his way back. He's played since, but he's still just like, ramping up after that ACL injury. But I'll say this most because I don't think he's going to get bought. I think Saric would be like the home run buyout acquisition of anyone that we just mentioned on this list, with a special shout out to Oubre. Just don't think that he's going to get bought out. And then under the radar would be Dragic, of course, but also Juan Toscano-Anderson. I'm still a believer in JTA. If you've made it to the end of the video, please remember to subscribe on wherever you consume your podcast, YouTube, Spotify, Apple, all three, if you can swing it. Until next time, and as always, I leave you with the shout out to one, the only, the man who hit a clutch three-pointer just an hour before I recorded this podcast, the legend, the only, the indelible Frank Ntilikina.